Hi, I'm Sophia from the Event Back team, and we're here at the Benelux Chamber of Commerce interviewing Tom.
Okay, so I'm Tom Hoogendijk. Currently I'm the president of the Benelux Chamber of Commerce in China, of our chapter here in Beijing. In my daily life I'm actually assistant marketing director at Info Sports and Media, which is a Swiss company owned by Wanda Group. But also I'm active for the Benelux Chamber as president, which is a voluntary position. It's basically our entire board of directors of people that are either entrepreneurs or employees at their companies from the Benelux community, and all contribute to the governance of the chamber.
Oh, great. And what is the Benelux Chamber, and who does it actually represent?
Okay, so basically the Benelux Chamber of Commerce in China. Legally we are registered officially as a Chamber of Commerce at the Chinese Ministry of Civil Affairs. And basically we are a member-driven organization, meaning that we try to basically navigate our members, those being enterprises from the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg active in China. That's one membership category. We also have Chinese companies that are actually looking to investigate chances of doing business in the Benelux, back in Europe. And we try to basically satisfy both member categories, so both the Benelux members in China as our Chinese members that are looking outward, to guide them through the challenges and also to try to help them spot any opportunities in a market.
So it's a two-way street kind of thing.
Exactly. But I would have to comment on that traditionally we've been really representing Benelux companies in China.
Yeah.
And that still is our most important mission, I would say. Like, that's the most of our members. But since the last 4 to 5 years, we've seen China is going through a quick internationalization phase, looking more outward, also trying to find more sustainable ways of economic development. So we see actually foreign markets becoming even more important for Chinese companies that previously more thought the domestic market is good enough for us, but now they are looking to Europe, and also with things like the tariff war between the US and China.
Yeah.
They're looking to other places to sell their products as well. So and Europe could be an alternative for that, and the Benelux being a very important, being three important nations in terms of logistics, technology, and many other fields, is definitely on the radar of a lot of Chinese organizations.
So yeah, with that in mind, the rapid growth and all the changes, what would you say some of the Benelux Chamber's most major milestones within the past 5 years have been?
I believe that I'm really proud that the Benelux Chamber has basically, I might be coming back to the previous question, but when I joined the Benelux Chamber, when I joined the board of directors of the Benelux Chamber a couple of years ago, I felt we are not enough in China. We are still not enough localized, right? So actually our full name is the Benelux Chamber of Commerce in China. Sometimes I believe we're not enough in China. And I'm really proud of the fact that we've become more local, and by that an awful lot more efficient as well in delivering value both for Chinese companies as for Benelux enterprises here in China.
What drew you to working in China here, and specifically the president role at the Benelux Chambers? What are your own personal motivations for joining and for moving to China from the Netherlands? Okay,
so my China story basically started when I was in university. I studied Asian Business Studies.
Yeah.
And it was like a 4 years bachelor program.
Oh, great. In the Netherlands? In
the Netherlands. Because they said it's Asian Business Studies, it's an major. Thus, 2 years of your bachelor program, you have to be based in Asia.
Excellent.
And already back in those days, China was the most interesting nation to be like. I love places like Indonesia, Japan, Korea, but in terms of economic growth potential, China was the place to be. And I still believe it is right now. During my bachelor studies, I spent 2 years in China already for internships, work placements, also doing my graduation research here. And so after I graduated, I sort of felt like, well, I'm not tired of China yet. It's just, I thought maybe just work for another 1 year or 2 years and then go back to the Netherlands for a master's degree. But the second part of the plan, the latter, never really happened. I sort of stick around, and
that was just the beginning.
And that sort of beginning job, you know, got replaced for a job that was a bit more interesting, a bit more serious, and better compensation as well. Then something came behind that. Then halfway, I met my wife actually. So more and more reasons to sort of stick around. To imagine seeing myself returning to Europe even. Of course, never say never, but I would say if I look at my personal career here, the things I do for in front as well for the Benelux Chamber, I feel those are very, very insightful experiences that would be very difficult to replicate in Europe. Don't understand me wrong, I love Europe, I love my country, I think it's a great place for innovation as well. But I believe the speed of development of your career in China can just be an awful lot quicker. There's a lot more markets that offer more opportunities and they're less mature.
Yeah.
So it might be more difficult to work here, but it makes it more interesting as well.
And you still have that connection to home, of course, in your position.
Of course. So and that is the thing that so this is also what I like about the Benelux Chamber, that it sort of allows me to sort of keep this connection with our home nations as well, and that I find extremely interesting to sort of keep that touch in there, and also how to see how China is perceived back in the Netherlands and back in Belgium and in Luxembourg, which is very different from our perception, because we live there every day. So when we see news about China in our national newspapers or on television in Benelux, we might have a very, very different image about that. And I think us sharing that knowledge with our friends in the Benelux that are not as China savvy as we are, that's where we bring a lot more added value for them on the table. So you know, when we talk to universities from the Benelux or consulting companies from the Benelux, like often some of our members, we invite them as speakers to companies that are on a mission or on a visit here in China, because well, for them, talking to someone that has been living here for 10 years or some of our members have been here for more than 20 years, they are such a vast source of inspiration and knowledge, you know, to those people that have been coming to China for the first or second time, are only coming for business trips, and that can create very, very meaningful exchanges as well. So that for me makes it very, very interesting.
Okay, so what would your main encouragement be for people who are considering joining the Chamber then, enterprises that you've spoken about who have joined in the past? What do you think they would say to people who want to join in the future maybe?
I think the major value for becoming part of a platform, because that's basically what the Chamber of Commerce is that we see that the amount of opportunities in China still continue to increase. But the ability to sort of benefit from those opportunities into very different markets might become more difficult to basically return opportunities into short-term profits. So companies have to look more to the long term, and also they might need more specific knowledge to sort of grab those opportunities that we see in the markets.
But also, how does the visibility side come in? How do you feel that the Benelux Chamber has affected Benelux's visibility in China as a whole?
I believe that you know, I think in terms of consumers, or even when we talk about B2B, right? Like when we try to promote our Benelux enterprises to try to introduce them to some Chinese potential partners for cooperation. I think everyone has very, very strong perceptions about a country. So the Benelux being abbreviation of Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. I think Chinese consumers, they might have a basic image of those countries. But those perceptions, either positive or negative, do not tell much about the expertise of our companies from those nations. So let's say when we think of the Netherlands, we think of orange, windmills, we think of a very liberal drug policy as well. There's many things that pop up in Chinese people's minds. When we think of Belgium, I think of chocolate, beer. We think of Luxembourg, for some reason Chinese think about castles, because Luxembourg, it actually translates to the Chinese word of castle in a sort of way. But when we tell that the Netherlands has the largest port in Europe, so in terms of when we talk about Belt and Road, when we talk about Chinese products being exported through the Netherlands, the two largest ports in Europe are in the Benelux, number one in Rotterdam and the port of Antwerp being number two. So all those Chinese products which go through the European hinterland, a lot of them flow through Belgium and the Netherlands to actually be distributed to other countries. When you talk about Luxembourg, which might be a tiny nation, but in terms of investment, in terms of banking, all the major Chinese banks have their European headquarters inside Luxembourg.
Yeah.
So think about ICBC, Bank of China, China Construction Bank, Agricultural Bank of China, etc., etc. They're all based in Luxembourg. Luxembourg is also leading in sort of funds or in bonds. They have the largest amount of RMB bonds in Europe. So even them as a small nation, they have really, really magnificent financial impact upon Europe. And I think that's sort of the story we try to bring to our Chinese audience or to our Chinese members as well. Let's say the Netherlands is the second largest agricultural exporter in the world after the United States. And that from a nation that is as big as Hainan. So those are all things where China and the Benelux can have very meaningful exchanges. You know, also Belgium, that is very, very well known for its pharma tech industry. All great innovations that China can benefit from. We see that China is becoming a developed nation in many, many ways. If we look at the amount of luxury bags sold, China might be more rich or wealthy than when we compare it to many Western European countries.
Yeah.
But there's two subjects where China is sort of lagging behind, and those are the fields of education and the fields of healthcare. And I think in both those fields there's an awful lot of expertise on those subjects in the Benelux, in the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg. And I think the Benelux Chamber of Commerce is trying to put itself in the middle and try to promote and facilitate those meaningful exchanges between the Benelux and China.
So that kind of goes into the question that I was going to ask about the global perceptions of the Benelux in comparison to China. What do you think are some issues and trends that are happening in China right now that the Benelux Chamber are kind of working to overcome?
I think overcome is a really, really big word, but I think it's about realization, and that is that the old image, the old Western ideal about China is that China is very different from the West, but we will slowly become more similar. So there was the expectation that Chinese consumers, they become more wealthy, thus they have more purchasing power, they will buy more products like Western consumers do, and they might also become more democratic, for example. But we see that a lot of the things are not turning out as expected. So we see that yes, Chinese consumers are becoming richer and richer. They do have a lot more purchasing power, but their consumer behavior remains very, very unique and very, very different from Western consumer behavior. And it's even different from Korean or Japanese Korean behavior. It is very, very specific. We see there's things that Chinese consumers do that no other group of consumers do in the world. And they excel in some things, they lack in some things. And I think that realization, you know, to bring that to our member companies is most important, is that it's almost impossible to see China as one country as well. Even North and South China, Beijing versus Shanghai, East Tier cities versus the heartland of China, or West China, which is a lot more poorer, which is a lot more challenges there as well. Like, this is so vastly different, and I think foreign companies have to sort of find the right mindset to operate in a country that is basically a continent on itself. It's, when we look at the European market, no one will sort of generalize the Swedish market with the Italian market. But in China, we sort of tend to do that because we think it's the same language, they're subjects to the same governments, it's one country. But in terms of consumer behavior, it's actually vastly different. This is also why our Belgian chapters in Beijing, Shanghai, in Guangzhou have quite different activities to sort of satisfy our different categories of members in each separate chapter.
So it sounds like yours is a role that you have to think on your feet quite a lot due to a lot of the challenges and the changes, the diversity of just being in such a complex country, right?
Yes, exactly. And also looking at, well, if we look at economic policy, I feel yes, things are still improving, but it's not continuous improvement. It's
Yeah.
sometimes you might go 6 steps forward and
Yeah.
5 steps back. So it's very very flexible. It's a very sometimes things simply get worse, and after they get better, and that is very very difficult to forecast as well. So sometimes some policies restricting foreign investment are removed despite no one sort of forecasted that happening. And sometimes when some liberalization of some markets are being expected, for some odd reason it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I think that and the nature of business, the nature of decision making in general is trying to make forecasts upon what's going to happen, and how is our business or our company going to anticipate to that. But that practice in China proves to be extremely difficult, and that's sort of where the Chamber of Commerce comes around the corner to sort of try to, as best as we can. Of course, we also can look in the future, but we can at least share the knowledge that's inside our community.
Yeah.
Like, we also have to consider that many of our companies are small, medium-sized enterprises. So if you are a Fortune 500 company from the Benelux, they might be among our members as well, but they have other issues. So they have budget to hire the best legal professionals in China to work for them. They can hire the best marketing directors that are available to work for them. If you are a medium-sized enterprise, you cannot get a guy that worked for Tencent for 10 years to become your digital strategist.
Yeah.
But you might still need a digital strategy. So you can come to a Chamber of Commerce event where many people share their digital strategies for the China market, where they share the difficulties, where they share successful case studies about how they've overcome their problems. And this is how we try to create this knowledge sharing platform, which especially for SMEs is of added value.
Yeah, that's great. So if we move on to talking about how Eventbank has helped you kind of navigate these difficulties and the complexities of kind of operating in China and having a large kind of umbrella of knowledge, and how do you think Eventbank has kind of managed to contribute to diminishing the difficulties or just help you get through those?
I think on an operational level, Eventbank has greatly contributed to decreasing the amount of work that is simple in nature, yet very, very time intensive.
Yeah.
So if even as a small organization, let's say like the Benelux Chamber is doing a lot of events, whether that can be a gala ball for more than 200 people, or a seminar or a training session for 20 people. There's a lot of registration involved, cancellations, I'll bring my colleague, this and that. And previously, this was all done by email.
Yeah.
So please RSVP to this email address to attend this event. Then also we had to sort of keep track of who had paid up front by bank transfer. This is even in the pre-WeChat area.
Wow.
Some people might actually come with cash on site.
Yeah.
And when actually pay them, you have to keep track of who wants a receipt, who doesn't. So it's a very, very simple process, but it's very time intensive when it's being executed by humans.
Yeah.
And Eventbank, just having all these processes integrated in an online platform, makes it an awful lot easier for us to sort of manage that. And in that way, our executives or our general manager take a focus upon real problems that our organization is dealing with. Take a focus upon creating value for our members, which is a lot more important than keeping track of long Excel tables of attendance. So that work is basically taken, of our out of the hands of our executives, and that gives them more time to work on really, really meaningful issues. So I think for that, Eventbank has greatly contributed to the general efficiency of doing events.
So streamlining your operations,
Exactly.
keeping your member portfolios in one place. That's all been really helpful.
Exactly, it is that, and also when we look at some of our bigger events, I think it's really insightful that Eventbank can give us some data, right? So while we have a rather small community, so I would not call it big data, but even small amounts of data sets can be very insightful and can really reveal about, which events did really work. So we don't only look at the amount of attendance, which is the most simple KPI, but we also look at how long did it took to get a certain amount of participants. At what times do they usually sign up? So when we try to track our efficiency on social media posts or on our email campaigns, we see if they're being sent at a certain amount of time in the day or during the week, we get this amount of registrations for these events. While we do it at another time, we got a lot less response. So this also allows us to sort of fine-tune our marketing communication strategy, which I, as a marketing professional, find very, very useful.
Yeah, of course. So you think your communications have been a lot more streamlined with your members and also a lot more transparent? Do you think that your members appreciate that aspect of Eventbank as well?
I think it's mainly about convenience.
Yeah.
So I think it's nice to people that they register and they can see who else is also registered. But I still think that the major factor is the content of the event itself, which makes people the decision to go or not go. But the fact that let's say Chinese consumers, and that those include foreigners living in China as well. If we go on to JD.com or Taobao, whatever, when I want to buy some mineral water, I can do that within 30 seconds. So I reach for my phone, I go to my platform. There's a few clicks, and I've bought it and I've paid it, and it's on its way to being delivered at home. But registering for an event, before we had Eventbank, still was sort of. You had to write an email. You had to write your name, your phone number maybe. It was sort of. It took a couple of minutes, I would say. And then if you forgot to fill in something, then our event manager would send an email to reply to it again to fill in a name for a colleague or to fill in your phone number that you might have forgot to put in there. And I think that consumers have a lot less tolerance for everything must go quickly, it must go immediate. And I think Eventbank sort of offers that service. So when I register for Benjamin events myself, I log in with my phone. I can actually have my Eventbank account linked to my WeChat as well. Yeah. So I don't even have to bother, of really registering an account. And it's just a few clicks. I can pay by WeChat and it's done. Yeah. And I have the code in my email, or I just make a print screen and keep it directly. And I don't have to bother about it anymore. I know it's confirmed, so I don't have to wait for someone to tell me there's still space available, you are permitted to come. I know directly, whether I'm still on time for registration or whether registration is already closed. And this amount of convenience is not something which is just simply good, it's what's demanded by consumers. It's when people have to register for something and it takes them a long time, they think, okay, well, I don't bother, I just won't go anyway, it's just too much of a fuss. It's even in these days when I register maybe for some professional events in my industry, and those are events for which I might have to pay a huge amount of money to go to these speeches, right, where they really have major speakers, and then they send me a form in a PDF format, which I then have to print out and have to fill it in by hand and then scan it in again and send back to them. And I feel, well, maybe in Europe or some other place in the world, this is still the way of attending events or of registration, but I think that consumers here in China, and once again that includes us as well as foreigners in China, because we get used to all those cool digits as well. People will not tolerate such an amount of inconvenience to go somewhere, and people are not only members, they're clients as well. They want to be served. It's that they pay for something, and they don't only pay to go to the event. They feel like I want that the process of registration is very convenient as well. That should not take me off my work or enable me to write 3 emails to know whether I can go or not go. It must go very instant, and I think that's what Eventbank can offer.
And the streamlining, and you don't want to waste your time with all these labor-intensive registration profiles.
Exactly. It's once again, when I can buy something on JD.com or Taobao in 30 seconds, then my registration should be also below 1 minute. That's it, and I think that's what Eventbank can offer, and I think that's the way the industry is. That's
what you value the most from what Eventbank offers as well.
From a consumer side, so yes, that for me is the largest added value from being an Eventbank user. And what I also like is that. Because you guys have been quite successful into providing the Eventbank platform not only to the Benelux Chamber, but also the American Chamber of Commerce in China is in the platform as well. So, of course, the Benelux is a very great area in terms of sports, but US is very good in other sports as well. look at American football, I'm sorry, just football if you're from the US, that is trying to develop in China, ice hockey that is trying to gain some ground here, NBA, which is huge here in China. There's more Chinese NBA fans than American NBA fans,
really?
for your insight. So, of course, they have very, very big operations here in China. And the American Chamber of Commerce is organizing from time to time sports-related events or seminars or panel discussions with people from those American sports properties. And for me as a sports professional, it's very, very interesting to listen to what these people have to say. And then again, when I might not be an AmCham member, but I might still as a non-member go to their events.
Yeah.
And I can once again register within 1 minute with my Eventbank account,
Yeah.
because I already have an Eventbank account at the Benelux Chamber. But it's just like a general Eventbank account. So when I want to register for an AmCham event, I can do that with the exact same account. And registration will cost me less than 1 minute, and I can still pay with my WeChat. And well, this is a big, this is a win-win. For the consumer side, the fact that I can already use one Eventbank account to go to multiple Chamber of Commerce events. So even as president of the Benelux Chamber, I love a lot of the events of our other chambers, other European chambers. I go to a lot of AmCham events myself, and I think that's already very, very good. But if you guys could just even further build upon that experience, I think that would be great as well. To from a consumer level, to say, hey, like, how can we sort of, how could we look at user accounts, right? And I see this user is going to a lot of sport events, which might be me. So this Benelux Chamber of Commerce member goes to a lot of sport events of the American Chamber, but he might not be aware that the Danish Chamber or that the British Chamber is doing sport events as well. So how can we bring this content to this person? And I think this could be beneficial for all chambers. It's not even counterproductive, because as a member, I'm only going to be a member of one Chamber of Commerce as a full membership. But there's a lot of Chamber of Commerce, I might not be the member, but still as non-member, I go to some of their events, even though it's like one event a year, 2 events a year. For those chambers, it's still good to have a source of income, to have like attendance from non-members.
Yeah, you want to interact with them.
It's even for us as BenCham, we say that we have to make our events more interesting to non-members as well, because that's a very big potential group that people say like, hey, like, I will only go to 1 to 2 events of your Chamber of Commerce a year. I'm not bothered to go for the full membership because that's not relevant enough for me. But if you just can get more non-members attending your events, and they bring their knowledge as well, they share their knowledge as well, if it's on marketing or on HR or on legal issues. So even during a BenCham event, I'm very, very glad to have a really, really senior marketing person from an American company, from a Swedish company, or from a Lithuanian company sharing his or her knowledge inside our BenCham circles. So I think maybe even increasing that interconnectivity could be interesting as well.
Do you think Eventbank currently makes it easy to reach out to these non-members and get them interested in the events that you have?
Well, I think it's easy to sort of like, of course, if I browse myself, I would come across it, but it's not that as BenCham member that through the Eventbank platform I automatically get targeted with with content that could be interesting. And no, this is very. It's also like a very difficult practice, I believe, because if you look at. For example, if you are a user on an online shopping platform, you maybe get a lot of recommendations that you find annoying or irrelevant based upon 2 purchases you made in the past. So I'm not saying this is a very, very easy practice, but I'm sure there must be some way to sort of pull it off.
Yeah, but you can personalize invitations for people that you want to attend your events.
Exactly. And I think if you would set up, let's say, a round table for all Chamber of Commerce clients here in Beijing, and let's say, how can we have all our members go to more of each other's events as non-members? So basically, more Benelux Chamber members going to AmCham events as non-member, and also more AmCham members come to BenCham events, to Benelux Chamber events as non-member. I think that's like a win-win situation for both. And like once again, I don't really believe that as Benelux Chamber that we are competing with other chambers. It's because it's different. As a company, you're either from the US or you're either from the Netherlands or from Belgium or from Germany. So people sort of align with their national chamber of commerce. So I think that that's a very clear thing. And even some Chinese companies, they might be member of multiple chambers at the same time. So I don't believe there's a lot of unwanted competition between chambers like that way. But if you could sort of increase the cooperation and have all our members go to each other's events, I think that could be a great opportunity.
Yeah, great. And then lastly, I guess a more personal question: what drew you to working in China here, and specifically the president role at the Benelux chambers? What are your own personal motivations for joining and for moving to China from the Netherlands?
Okay, so my China story basically started when I was in university. I studied Asian Business Studies.
Yeah.
And it was like a 4 years bachelor program.
Oh, great. In the Netherlands?
In the Netherlands. Because they said it's Asian Business Studies, it's an major. Thus, 2 years of your bachelor program, you have to be based in Asia.
Oh, excellent.
And already back in those days, China was the most interesting nation to be like. I love places like Indonesia, Japan, Korea, but in terms of economic growth potential, China was the place to be. And I still believe it is right now. During my bachelor studies, I spent 2 years in China already for internships, work placements, also doing my graduation research here. And so after I graduated, I sort of felt like, well, I'm not tired of China yet. You know, it's just, I thought maybe just work for another 1 year or 2 years and then go back to the Netherlands for a master's degree. But the second part of the plan, the latter, never really happened. I sort of stick around, and that
was just the beginning. Huh?
And that sort of beginning job, you know, got replaced for a job that was a bit more interesting, a bit more serious, and better compensation as well. Then something came behind that. Then halfway, I met my wife actually. So more and more reasons to sort of stick around.
That was great. That was really interesting. Thank you so much for speaking to us at Event Bank.
It was a pleasure.